Greetings and welcome back to Endfield. So, you saw the title of the video. Who do I say the new Faramid proxy is? Well, I say that new Faramid proxy is Sui itself, the original natural god from Terra and the originator of the 12 Sui siblings. That sounds absolutely insane, doesn't it? How can we have a god that is, by the Arknight's lore, slumbering underneath basically the capital of Yan for the past 1,000 years? How can that be here? Well, it all came down to the recent 1.2 story and all the stuff that we learned within that story once we actually came here to the Shira Knight Marker Stone. So first, it was that. As soon as we stepped through the door and I saw that, I was like, hold on a second. That is pretty much an ink scroll painting. And as we are then told, that is called the scroll. And it is how you navigate this giant tower that is called the Marker Stone. You go into a portal inside it, and you walk through a little hallway, as we can see in the screenshot. You go out, and you're in a different part of the tower. So they are using it pretty much like a warp tunnel, like going through the warp, like going through something else. But anyway, that is basically an alternate world inside that scroll. Do you know who else has powers like that? Well, in the original Arknights, the operator known as Dusk, who is the 11th Faramid proxy or Sui proxy, has powers that are basically identical to that. She is able to paint entire worlds inside ink paintings, and if you accidentally fall into one of them and you don't know it, you will be stuck in there for the rest of your life. Now, it is possible to exit that painting, but you need an extremely high amount of self-awareness or to be one of the proxies themselves to understand that where you are is not real and that you can simply whisk yourself out by wanting to. Now, that was the first thing. Now, as we are then told that is actually, after that is called the scroll, and we enter through it, we are told that it is only one of the many powers she has. So yes, not only do we have Dusk's power over ink, or whatever we want to call it, but she has many other powers. So that immediately told me that the only entity in the world that could have both Dusk's powers of ink as well as many other powers is Sui itself. But how can that be? In the original Arknights, we are told over and over that Sui itself is slumbering underneath the capital of Yan. Well, you may not know this if you're only playing Endfield, but in the original Arknights, there is a mode called Integrated Strategies, and it is an alternate mode where we get to explore deep storylines that aren't related to the main storyline of the game. And these are permanent modes that you can go at any time because they're that important. Now, one is called the Sui's Garden of Grotesqueries. Now, this is a very special place located inside Yan, located atop of a mountain whose location is directly above the slumbering body of Sui itself, who is deep underground. Now, this causes the energy emanating from the sleeping Sui to permeate the earth, come out through the mountain, and then create what is known as the Garden of Grotesqueries. Now, because we are basically inside that garden and doing things inside that garden during this mode, we are actually able to affect Sui's subconscious. And during one of the endings, and as we are working through to another thing, which is recovering GA who disappeared, who's one of the other proxies, during one of the endings, we see a scroll depicting the final hunt of ancient Yan. This is when Sui and the united humans of Yan banded together to expel and or fell all the other Faramids within the land. Now, after this giant battle, Sui was extremely exhausted, and so the Emperor forced him into slumber for all eternity. That's how you would describe it. However, we know through the events of the many events of the Sui siblings that Sui is slowly waking up. And they don't want that, because if Sui wakes up, all the Sui proxies immediately disappear. Anything they have ever done with their hands and all memories of them disappear from everyone on the earth. They just disappear from history, from memory, from anything they have created. They just flat out disappear. And as you can imagine, that is quite a terrifying thought. That if one thing wakes up, you disappear and nobody remembers you. So they've been actively working to stopping that. Now, during this Garden of Grotesqueries, as we are looking through that scroll and we see that ending, we see that it's not exactly as it happened. As Sui falls to the ground exhausted, the first emperor, who was called Yan, that's why Yan is called Yan, approaches him and promises him the guise of man. Now, this is not how we remember the story, as I just told you. This is something that is different. So because we see it through this scroll, and this scroll is made entirely entirely out of Sui's spiritual energy. And because we witnessed it and left it there inside the garden, as we keep going through the scroll as players, we see that a new ending is being formed. Where before Sui was depicted in its entirety, there is only a little blot of ink. And this is why I believe that this new Firmament proxy is Sui itself. By laying that little foundation inside of its energy, spiritual energy, and subconscious that he was promised, or she was promised, the guise of man, now when she wakes up, she is not going to wake up as the Firmament Sui, but as the human Sui. So I believe she's going to keep her original name Sui. That's just what I'm thinking, but that is what I believe, or why I believe that this new proxy is Sui herself. It's a bit of an out there theory, admittedly, but everything from original Arknights to what we know of going on in this game and the fact that she is teased very heavily, along with everything we know so far, that she is described as having a very childlike personality, that she is very young, and that she is filled with infinite curiosity about Hongshan and all the sciences. This tells me that this is probably the case, because imagine if you went to sleep 1,000 years ago, you wake up and suddenly the world is completely different. Wouldn't you want to learn about absolutely everything, knowing that you have all the time in the world? Yeah, I would too. And if you were suddenly woken up and suddenly you're in a completely new body that you don't recognize, but your subconscious tells you that you were promised and all that other stuff, that is what I believe we are about to get Sui the Firmament itself. Now, we are not about to get a fully powerful god, absolutely not. Because remember, there are 12 other siblings out there who share a fragment of his power, or who possess fragments of her power. Now, this is why I believe that the power to make this scroll here isn't as powerful as Dusk's ability to create entire worlds inside ink paintings. So while all the other Sui siblings are specialists in that they have unique powers and are extremely powerful, but they only have that one power. Sui herself will have weaker versions of all of their powers, but very limited extent. As we can see, she only has that one painting. She is also able to summon tiny little ink spirits, that butterflies that she uses to communicate with. Dusk, on the other hand, is able to create entire creatures that she calls inklings, and these can also exit her paintings and live in the outside world, although they usually don't last very long. They're very mischievous. So yeah, all of that evidence is what tells me this new one is Sui. So what do you think? Am I completely out of my rocker, or is my evidence presented enough that this is probably where we are going and what we're going to get? Because if it is, we are going to have a very interesting time, or at least at least me. And not only that, but if I go all the way over here to the database, to the item files, no. Here, I finally found it. As you can see here, we are not being teased with her, but we can see 3 more Sui proxies here in this image. Now, does this mean they're going to be here in the game? I don't think so. This is just something, but as you can see here, was really bewildering. Yes, this is exactly how people describe their powers. Maybe she isn't one of the original 12 proxies, so yes, she is the brand new. But who can we see here behind her? This is obviously Chang Yue. His horns are extremely distinctive, so yeah, that's him. Next to him is Wang, the second oldest. His horns that spiral inward and his messy hair gives him away. This one over here with the cut bob and these slightly horns are G8. She is the one that disappeared because she sacrificed herself to keep Sui asleep and now is back. Not yet, but at least we know what she looks like. And this here, I don't know what it is. But the fact, oh, hold on, I do believe this is Dusk over here. I think that might be Dusk, if not entirely sure. But the fact that all these siblings are present here means that we might actually be getting them, and that would be absolutely insane. In the original Arknights, we don't even know what Chang Yue's powers are actually like. As soon as he awoke and knew who he was, he sealed his powers inside the sword, and he has never used them. Wang's powers, I'm not entirely sure, but he is very interesting. And Jie had power over the written word, so anything she wrote could be understood by pretty much anybody. That's my interpretation, at least. And if this is dusk, but I don't think so. No, yeah, hold on. Yes, I do believe it might be dusk. Maybe, possibly. No idea. So anyway, yeah, that's everything we know about the new Sui sibling, who I believe is actually Sui itself. And yeah, we will see you next time when we find more information. Hopefully we get all 12 Sui siblings in this game, all 13 now, because that would be very fun. But anyway, later.